It started as a dare, a challenge born out of boredom and the invincibility we felt in our early 20s. My friend, Marcus, had always been the more adventurous between us, constantly seeking the next thrill, the next high. It was Marcus who stumbled upon the game, buried deep within the dark web, a place we ventured out of curiosity and the foolish bravery that comes with youth. The most terrifying game ever created, the forum post claimed, a statement that piqued Marcus's interest and set us on a path from which there would be no return. The game, unnamed, was said to be a psychological horror that adapted to the player's deepest fears, making each experience uniquely terrifying. It was accompanied by a warning: play at your own risk. We laughed it off, dismissing the warning as a marketing gimmick. Marcus, ever the thrill-seeker, was determined to play it. I, on the other hand, felt a knot of unease in my stomach, an instinctual warning that went unheeded. We set up in his basement, the darkness enveloping us, a fitting atmosphere for what was to come. The game began innocuously enough, a simple text-based interface that asked for our names. Marcus typed his in, the screen flickering momentarily before presenting the first question: "What scares you the most?" Marcus typed in his response, a smirk on his face, unaware of the consequences that single action would set into motion. The game evolved from there, a series of choices that led us deeper into its twisted narrative. It was immersive, the text descriptions vivid and unsettling, designed to instill a sense of dread that crept under your skin. But it was when the game began to incorporate details about Marcus's life, things it couldn't possibly know, that the line between game and reality blurred. Marcus laughed it off, attributing it to clever programming and data mining. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere in the basement grew oppressive, the darkness seeming to press in on us with an almost physical weight. Marcus became increasingly agitated, his laughter forced, his eyes glued to the screen as if unable to look away. It was nearing dawn when I finally convinced him to stop, the unease I felt blossoming into fear. Marcus was different, his demeanor changed, a manic edge to his voice as he spoke of the game, of how it understood him better than anyone ever had. I left his house feeling unsettled, the images from the game etched into my mind, a haunting reminder of the night. In the days that followed, Marcus withdrew, his once constant presence in my life replaced by silence. Calls went unanswered, texts ignored. Concerned, I visited his house, only to find him a shell of the person he once was. He was gaunt, his eyes hollow and haunted, a man consumed by an obsession he could neither explain nor escape. He spoke of the game, of how it called to him, whispering secrets in the dark, secrets that promised enlightenment and understanding. It was clear that the game had taken a toll on his sanity, the barrier between the virtual and the real no longer distinguishable in his mind. I tried to help him, to pull him back from the brink, but Marcus was too far gone, his reality a twisted labyrinth from which there was no escape. He became paranoid, convinced that the game was watching him, influencing his life in ways we couldn't understand. The last time I saw Marcus, he was raving about reaching the final level, of how everything would make sense once he completed the game. It was the last time anyone saw him. Marcus disappeared that night, leaving behind a room filled with scribbled notes and cryptic messages that spoke of a truth found within the darkness. The police investigation turned up nothing, no sign of Marcus or where he might have gone. The game, too, vanished from the dark web, as if it had never existed, leaving no trace behind but the memories of those who had witnessed its effects firsthand. I've spent countless nights since then searching for answers, delving into the depths of the internet in hopes of finding something that could explain what happened to Marcus. But some mysteries remain unsolved, hidden within the shadows of the web and the human mind. The experience has left me changed, a constant fear gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. I avoid the dark now, the shadows where I imagine the game lies in wait, a predator stalking its next victim. Marcus's fate is a haunting reminder of the dangers that lurk within the pursuit of the unknown, a warning to those who dare venture too far in search of thrills. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, I can hear him, Marcus's voice, whispering from the shadows, a chilling reminder of the game and its power. Whether it's my guilt manifesting or something more sinister, I can't say. All I know is that the line between reality and the digital world is more fragile than we think, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed again. The game, whatever it was, took my friend, leaving behind only questions and a chilling void where once there was laughter and life. In my search for answers, I found only darkness, a darkness that threatens to consume me as it did Marcus. So I write this as a warning: beware the allure of the unknown, for some horrors are too deep to fathom, hidden in the dark corners of the web and the human psyche. The glow of my monitor was the only light in the room, casting long shadows across the walls of my small, cluttered apartment. It was well past midnight, and the world outside my window was silent, save for the occasional car passing by. I was lost in the virtual world of my game, the real world fading away as I delved deeper into digital battles and quests. This was my escape, my sanctuary from the mundanity of my day job and the loneliness of my existence. It was during one such gaming session, my headphones drowning out any sound from the outside world, that my life took a turn into the realm of nightmares. I was so engrossed in my game that I didn't hear the window in my living room being slowly, carefully opened. It wasn't until I felt the presence, a shift in the air, a feeling of being watched, that I paused my game, removing my headphones. The silence that greeted me was heavy, charged with an unseen threat. I stood, my heart beginning to race as I strained my ears for any sound that might explain the unease that had settled over me. It was then I heard it, a soft, deliberate step in the living room. Panic surged through me, a cold wave that left me momentarily paralyzed. Someone was in my apartment. The thought was a terrifying clarity in the midst of my fear. I moved towards my bedroom door, which I had left ajar, and peered into the dimly lit living room. The streetlights outside cast just enough light for me to see the figure of a man, standing still in the center of the room, as if listening, searching. I retreated silently into my room, my mind racing with options. I didn't own a phone. I had always deemed it an unnecessary expense in my isolated world. My computer was my only link to the outside, and calling for help through it would take too long. I had to escape, to get out before the intruder found me. My window was my only exit, a drop from the second floor that seemed suddenly insurmountable. But as I heard the soft steps begin again, moving slowly towards my bedroom, fear lent me courage. I opened the window quietly, the night air cold on my skin, and looked down. The drop was far, but the alternative was far worse. Just as I was about to climb onto the sill, a voice broke the silence, low and menacing. "I know you're in there. Come out, and maybe I'll go easy on you." The voice was like a physical force, freezing me in place. It was clear this wasn't a mere word. There was something in his tone that spoke of darker intentions. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a loud drum in the quiet of the room. I weighed my options in a moment of desperation. The fall could injure me, but staying put was a guaranteed path to something far worse. As I hesitated, the decision was made for me. The bedroom door began to inch open, a sliver of darkness growing wider with each passing second. In a burst of adrenaline-fueled fear, I climbed onto the windowsill, my gaze fixed on the door as it continued to open. I didn't wait to see the man step into view. I let go, the ground rushing up to meet me as I fell to the ground. The impact was jarring, pain radiating through my legs and back as I hit the ground. I lay there for a moment dazed, the world spinning around me. But the sound of the window above me opening spurred me into action. Ignoring the pain, I got to my feet and ran, limping into the darkness. I didn't stop running until I reached the main road, the occasional passing car reminded that I was back in the real world. I flagged down a passing vehicle, the driver taking one look at my face and immediately calling the police. The aftermath was a blur of questions and flashing lights. The police searched my apartment but found no one. The intruder had fled, leaving behind no evidence of his identity. My humble abode was a mess, signs of his search for me evident in the upturned furniture and broken belongings. I couldn't return to my apartment after that night. The place that had been my sanctuary now felt tainted, the shadows hiding unseen threats. I stayed with a friend, jumping at every sound, my nights plagued by nightmares of the intruder's voice and the feeling of being watched. The police never caught him, my case just one of many in a city too large to care about one man's brush with danger. I was left with the aftermath, the fear that lingered long after the physical wounds had healed. I gave up gaming after that, the world I had once found solace and now a reminder of how it had almost cost me my life. I invested in a phone, keeping it close at all times, a lifeline to a world I could no longer afford to ignore. The experience changed me, made me wary of the shadows and the night. I learned the hard way that horror isn't confined to the screen, that real monsters don't need to hide behind masks or in the pages of a story. They walk among us, unseen, until the moment they decide to step into the light. The allure of the forbidden has always been a siren call for the curious and the brave. We, a group of 5 high school seniors, were no exception. Bored with the monotony of suburban life and eager for a thrill that our video games and late-night movie marathons could no longer provide, we turned our attention to the dark web. It was Kevin who first mentioned the Shadows game, a name whispered in the most hidden corners of forums, a game said to be as horrifying as it was addictive. It was rumored to have driven its players to madness, some disappearing without a trace, others left to whisper warnings against seeking it out. We should have heeded those warnings. It took us 3 days to find a working link. The 5 of us huddled around my laptop, the only light in the room coming from the screen. The site was simple, almost disappointingly so, with a single line of text: "Do you wish to play?" Below it, a yes or no prompt. We exchanged excited glances, the shared adrenaline rendering our apprehensions mute. I clicked yes. The game began innocuously enough, with riddles and puzzles that seemed more tedious than terrifying. But as we progressed, it demanded more from us, personal information exchanged for the next piece of the puzzle. It was when the game asked for our addresses that a sliver of fear wormed its way into our excitement. We debated stopping, but the allure of what lay ahead, of proving ourselves amongst a community of dark web thrill seekers, pushed us forward. We submitted our information. The next day, the consequences of our decision began to unfold. Kevin was the first to notice he was being followed. He brushed it off as paranoia, the result of too many horror movies and not enough sleep. But then, Sarah's house was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but her room was ransacked, a message left on her mirror in red lipstick: "Continue playing." We met in secret, fear binding us tighter than any shared thrill ever could. We decided to end our involvement with the game, to ignore any further prompts or messages. That decision sealed our fate. Jason disappeared the next day. No note, no message, just an empty room and a family left to question where they had gone wrong. The police were clueless, the traces of Jason's digital footprint leading only to dead ends and the impenetrable shadow of the dark web. The game continued to send us messages, each one more menacing than the last. Play, or suffer the consequences, it warned. We were being watched, our every move tracked by an unseen adversary who reveled in our fear. The decision to go to the police was made in desperation, but it offered no solace. They were unable to trace the game or its creators, the digital breadcrumbs leading only to the darkest corners of the internet, places beyond their reach. We were on our own. Our group fractured under the weight of our fear. We stopped meeting, each of us retreating into the fragile safety of our homes. But isolation offered no protection. I began to notice figures lurking in the shadows, always just out of sight, their presence a constant reminder of the game's reach. It was during one sleepless night, the silence of my room a heavy blanket, that I decided to take action. If the police couldn't help us, I would find someone who could. My search led me to an online community of hackers, digital vigilantes who claimed to be able to trace anything and anyone. I reached out, my message a plea for help. They responded within hours, intrigued by the challenge. They worked in silence, their progress a mystery until the day I received a single email: "We found something." The hackers had traced the game to an abandoned warehouse in the city, a place that had once been a factory before economic downturns left it empty and forgotten. They warned me against going, but I couldn't ignore the chance to end this nightmare. I had to know who was behind the Shadows game, had to stop them before anyone else disappeared like Jason. I went alone, the weight of my decision a heavy cloak. The warehouse was as desolate as promised, its windows broken, the walls covered in graffiti. I entered, my phone the only light in the oppressive darkness. The interior was a labyrinth of corridors and rooms, each step forward a battle against the fear that clawed at my insides. It was in the heart of the warehouse that I found it, a room filled with monitors, each displaying different parts of our lives. Photos of us, our families, our homes, flickered across the screens, a digital shrine to our terror. And there, in the center of the room, sat a man. He was unremarkable in appearance, but the aura around him was one of pure malice. He didn't seem surprised to see me, as if my arrival was just another part of his game. "You've come to stop me," he stated, his voice devoid of emotion. I confronted him, demanded to know why he had targeted us, why he had taken Jason. His answer was simple, chilling in its nonchalance: because I could. The conversation was cut short by the sound of sirens, the police arriving just in time to prevent whatever final act a man had planned for me. He was arrested, but Jason was never found. The game was dismantled, its creator deemed mentally unfit to stand trial. The aftermath was a return to a normalcy that felt foreign after what we had experienced. My friends and I drifted apart, each of us dealing with the trauma in our own way. The dark web, once a place of thrilling exploration, became a symbol of our collective nightmare, a door we had opened but could never fully close. The game may have ended, but its effects lingered. I became wary of the shadows, of the digital footprints we leave behind. The world seemed darker, more menacing, a place where horror could lurk behind the screen, waiting for the next player to unwittingly invite it into their life. In the end, our search for excitement on the dark web had brought us face to face with a horror that was all too real, a reminder of the darkness that exists not just online, but within the hearts of men.